I've been on the road for about a week, but I came home and thought, I need to paint some roses. So I had set up with some David Austin variety roses. And they are the Munstead wood and the pink variety, I think, are heritage. I'm not quite sure. But right here, I'm just blocking in. I'm actually using permanent rose as my blocking color because of all the pinks. And I toned the canvas. There you can see the setup. I toned the canvas with just kind of a mixture of alizarin and I think a little bit of umber a few days before, so that I started with a toned canvas. And what I'm doing right now, as you can see, really simply is just blocking in shapes, very simplified shapes that I see. I'm not going for detail at all at this point. That's really important when you start a painting, is not to get bogged down into all the little minutia, the details, and just go for very simplified shapes and colors. These are the leaves. My green mixtures are usually Viridian, transparent oxide red, maybe a little bit of yellow in there or umber just to tone it down with. And then these lighter ones, I just add a little bit more white to those mixtures. So again, I'm not trying to paint a finished leaf. I'm just trying to paint a basic, shape of what those leaves, how those leaves look, that shape. And so this is the shadow of the vase. It's a white vase, and I struggled a little bit getting the color that I wanted, but the value, you can see some of it's a little green, some of it's a little blue, and oh, here's the light side. The same thing. I generally start a little bit warmer than most people would start, because light my still life with a cool light, a 5,000 Kelvin bulb. So I start warm and I build up the cooler lights, as you can see. And that mixture is probably white with some Viridian and maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. But here I'm trying to create this little transition between the light side and the shadow side with subtle, subtle temperature shifts. And I love this part of painting. I love these little simple temperature shifts. So I'm building up the highlight right there. What I call the aura is white and Viridian and then just pure white. So I've got the vase enough where now I want to go back to the roses, because the roses, are only going to last probably 1 or 2 days out of the refrigerator. I always put my flower, once I cut them, I put them in the fridge for about an hour or so to harden them. And these are the Munstead wood. They're a beautiful, beautiful red violet rose. And so I'm using mixtures of alizarin, permanent rose, white, maybe a little bit of green to kind of grace some of the mixtures. The whites, I'm using white, probably with a little bit of yellow and Viridian. That's probably permanent rose right there. I just add a little bit of, Viridian to my pink mixtures to gray them a little bit. So now I'm working on the light shapes of that main rose. Again, you can see I do use my fingers a lot when I'm painting to kind of soften edges a little bit. But again, you can see still how simply the shapes are that I'm placing them in. Um, and then as the painting continues, then I'll do more and more detail, but the beginning stages are just really simple block-ins, and that's really important to see things as shapes and not as things. I'm not painting a rose or a leaf, I'm painting a shape, a geometric shape, an abstract shape, and I'm just asking myself, what is the value? Is it light or dark? And then I ask myself, what's the intensity? Is it bright or dull? And then I ask myself the temperature. Is it warmer, cooler than, the color next to it? So those three questions I'm constantly asking myself. Am I too light or too dark, too warm or too cold, or too bright or too dull? That's what's constantly going through my mind as I paint. I'm just using the Sable Tech flat brush that I sell on our Inspired to Paint site. And if you haven't checked out Inspired to Paint, it's an online art course with my good friend Shanna Coons, who's a landscape painter. We have over 200 full-length instructional videos on our site that includes the Palace Shots complete dialogue. You get reference images. We do group critiques. We do concept lessons, business tips, product reviews. We just have so much content on the site, and you can join for $10 for your first month, but there's no contract. You can cancel anytime. We have 4 different memberships to choose from. So here I am trying to get the darker value of those deep red violet roses, and I'm using alizarin with maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue in there. You could even use a little bit of ivory black. Just, I don't want it too cold. I still want it feel a little bit warm because of the cool light source. And the lighter mixtures are permanent rose with a little bit of white. And maybe, oh, I think I did add some cobalt violets for some of those cooler purpley tones that you see for the lighter areas. That was probably cobalt violet and some white. You can see how messy the outer perimeter is of that far right or far left rose, but I don't worry about that because I know I have background to do. And I am a puzzle piece painter, meaning like I put pieces together here and there. I don't work on one rose to its finished state and then move to another rose and work on it till it's finished. I jump around a lot in my paintings because I want to work the whole piece as a whole and not isolate one individual element at a time. So you can see how much I jump around from roses to leaves, back to roses. I also find that, if I work on an area too long, then I get used to the problems and I don't see the problem areas. So once I work on the roses for a while, I'll give myself a break and work on the leaves. And then when I go back to the roses, I can see, what needs to be, what's working or what's not working. When I squint down a lot at the roses as I paint, and if I squint down and I see a shape, majority of it is in light, I'll mass it in light, and then I'll come back and carve in shadows. If I see it as a majority of dark, then I'll mass it in dark and, then add the light. There are some beautiful subtle greens in these particular roses. These actually might be Eden, now that I think about it. Eden rose from David Austin. I do paint very fast in the beginning stages. Obviously not this fast. I've sped up this video for you, but I do paint fast in this beginning stages. Working from life, from flowers, you got to paint pretty fast. So these first stages of just getting these block ends done and some detail usually happens within a couple hours for me. In fact, this particular video real time was just a little painting time was probably just a little over 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours that I've condensed down to 21 minutes. I have videos on all of my supplies on the Inspired to Paint site. Just go to inspiredtopaint.com and click on About Elizabeth Robbins and scroll down. You'll see a video on how I set up my still lifes and all of the materials that I use. There's lots of other free videos on Inspired to Paint that you can watch. So these are little rosebuds that I'm starting to develop. There's so many petals in these particular roses, the David Austin variety, that you really have to simplify. They're a bowl, kind of a bowl shape, but they just have, you know, hundreds of petals that just wrap around each other. But you just have to learn to simplify. What I don't want is I'm trying not to get this light shadow, light shadow, light shadow kind of thing that, you know, if there's two petals that are fairly close in value that I try and connect them. I don't have to have a sliver of shadow in between every single uh, petal. So I'm trying to build up more this main rose. One of the hardest ways to paint a rose is facing directly into the light, because you do get that light shadow kind of concept going, a stripiness to it, and it's difficult to not um, do that. So there's a rug on the bottom that I have placed. I'm not sure how much I'm going to do pattern-wise I'm going to do on the rug, but I do want a sense of something. The background color is just a mixture. I'm trying to go for a gray, kind of a gray blue. It was probably black and white and with some blue. I know I may have added some transparent oxide red, maybe a little bit of alizarin. I can't remember. And I kind of like some of that ground kind of peeking through some of it. I am getting darker on this side because there's a cast shadow from the vase. This is a little blue cup, a flow blue that I absolutely love to paint. You can see, you know, if I had done like a warm green background, I would have put more warm greens in the shadow of that cup. But because of the blue background, it's, you know, it's a pretty, it was a very grade blue violet, but it's still warmer than my white highlight. If I'd had like a deep burgundy background, I probably would have thrown a lot more alizarin into that shadow color. That's just straight, that brighter blue area, that's just straight French ultramarine. Again, using my finger to blend. You can see I pull the background down in because you know, I want everything to relate. So by pulling the blue into the vase, it just helps harmonize the painting and lets it live within that environment. Back to the roses, give myself a break on the cup. Those are going to be leaves, but you see how simply I mass in the whole shape? So I put in that dark kind of violet on either edge of the rug to kind of stop your eye from going clear out. It keeps you within the picture frame. And so this is the little candle holder. These candles that I do in my paintings, they are very symbolic to me, and they actually represent my life force, though that I'm, you know, I am my life force is burning down as I get older, but I'm still trying to give off light and warmth to the world, and so they're very symbolic to me as I paint them in my paintings. Taking a larger flat brush to kind of calm some of the brush strokes down in the background. So back to the rug, kind of grain that pink color that I have down there, and making sure that those rug colors don't overpower the roses. And I've decided that, the yellow, the candlestick holder brass was somewhat isolated, so I've changed that color to a more ochre, a dark ochre color, so that's repeated more than just that one place in the painting, and I think that helped. And that stem, I love that stem. It's so lyrical, from the rosebud there. Going back to the vase. Again, this stage, I don't consider any part of the element of any element in the painting done, but I have a really, really good start. And if I can't finish the painting from life, then the whole there's enough information there that I can go back later and finish the painting. I do when the flowers are blooming, I do start a lot of paintings from life that don't get quite done. I may do 2 paintings a day, get one really started, a good start, and then set up another setup and get another good start from life. So at least I have that experience from painting from life, the experience of seeing, the colors more accurately, the values more accurately. And I'm trying to decide how much detail I want to put in the rug. The painting's all about the roses, not the rug. I'm using the back of the paintbrush to kind of scratch through so that it breaks those lines, kind of creates the illusion of threads. Wasn't liking that rosebud, so I just mushed it out and try it again. This is my mother's vase that I paint quite a bit. I just love this vase. It's Korean, so that's actually bamboo. There's a lot of times I paint the pattern completely different, but I just absolutely love this vase. So I'm using a bristle brush, and I'm using just straight French ultramarine. Might have added a little bit of alizarin crimson to where it's in the shadow. And here I'm using a longer flat, a dry flat, and just kind of softening all of that stuff, all that blue. So that feels more like flow blue. I'm looking at places where I can break edges, lost and found. So that flame, that color, um, I may go back and put little dots of that kind of yellow orange in the bouquet somewhere so that that color is a little bit more repeated. These are little petals. The petals again are very symbolic to me that lay on the table. Life can get pretty messy. Life isn't perfect. And they're also just another shape, another element that is interesting, but they are very symbolic to me. I want to make sure that the point of that leaf doesn't line up exactly with that edge of the rose. So I'm watching my tangents. And there it is in the frame. It's not quite done, but I always look at it in the frame in the very end so that I can determine what it needs as a whole. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please check out my Inspired to Paint site if you haven't already. My website, Elizabeth Robbins Art, and I hope you're inspired to paint. Thank you.